So, Stephanie, this was one you stuck in here. This is a really interesting article from the Wall Street Journal that came out about screen time and its effect on kids. In one study, affluent kids have a better outcome than poor kids. But this may have been more about family dynamics than actually about the amount of time that children are physically in front of a screen. Mm-hmm. So what were your thoughts on this article?
Yeah, I put this in here because I get this question all the time. I talk to parents, about their kids' social media and screen time, regularly, and they're always like, "Well, what's too much, and what should we be doing, and how do I keep them from blah 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 blah?" And I'm always trying to drill home the point that your involvement is the most important thing, and they never seem to want to listen and understand. They seem to want a solution or a quick, easy sort of silver bullet way to say, do this one thing or change this one setting or whatever. And it's so it's
okay. So I was not confused. I was hoping that you wasn't saying that the parents was looking for a reason as to how they can, or the best way as to how they can dish off the responsibility of interacting with their kids.
I mean, it kind of sounds to hear some parents talk about it. It kind of sounds like it, yeah. And when you think about that, as I was thinking about that and reading this article, the article pretty much makes the correlation towards lower income children having more negative types of interaction and more negative types of screen time. And it was interesting because the article didn't really necessarily demonize screen time at all, really. I mean, unless it's for like very, very young children, like don't give a child under the age of 1 a screen because you do actually stunt their brain development at that age. But for kids 4 or 5 and older, it's not necessarily the amount of screen time, but it's what you're doing when you're on that screen. And so the idea that, lower income students have worse outcomes as it relates to that, because I would imagine because they have less involved parents, because the parents are probably working more hours and doing more things and things like that. And
or
maybe
can't afford
not
these activities, because good grief.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
I got kids right now in activities and they in my pockets. So I can imagine not having the type of resources that I have and still trying to raise kids, doing it the best you can. And it's like, all right, well, I need something for you to do. I can't afford you in this camp and that camp and this thing and that thing. Here, phone.
And then the neighborhoods are such that kids can't go outside and play anymore because it's not safe. And it's just this vicious circle that this thing called the internet that was supposed to be this, democratizing force in our society and things like that is really kind of backfiring when it comes to, people with lower incomes, because they're just consuming a lot of it. But it feels like it should be an easy fix because everybody gets the same internet. So, how can we coax our young, and I don't want to just, make the blanket statement that only Black people are low income, but, I care about Black people with low income. So like, how do we convince, our people to help their children make better choices, or how do we help the children make better choices as it relates to the type of content they consume online?
Well, I will say, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say one of the things that I was picking up in this article was that it was they kind of made the correlation to video games. So we are all of the age that when we were kids and they were coming up, they were talking about how playing video games was rotting our brains and this and that and the other. And pretty much every study recently, or not even recently, in the last 30 years have come out and said, no, that's not really true. It's about what you do in addition to the video games. It's about the interactions that you're having outside of just playing those games. And I think that was kind of the thing here. It did say for very young children, Stephanie, you do not want them on screens pretty much at all, unless it's like they're talking to a grandparent and you're there with them to actually give them the cues of what, to help them understand what it is that they're doing. But as the children get older, it was saying that there's really no correlation in between the amount of time and negative impacts. It is what are you doing at dinner? What are you reading? How, what is the education level of the parents? What is the involvement of the parents? It was all these other things that aren't the boogeyman of the screen time.
And that's internet. What I be trying to tell these daggone parents. They want, like I said, they want, to your point, Terrence, they, give me a pill basically to give my kids to not be on social media so much. And I'm like, you're the pill. You are the plug. Like, you set the standard, you set the tone in your house, you create those rules and regulations. I tell them all the time about no phones at dinner. Like, you need to, I always advise parents to create a digital contract that will govern device usage in your home. So work on it with your kids. If it's no devices at dinner, if it's no devices at bedtime, whatever that is, everybody gets to say in what those rules become, and the consequences of breaking those rules also need to be in writing. Everybody signs it, you know what I mean? Go get it notarized if you want to be like super, super official, but it is you, you are the pill or the silver bullet that's going to make the difference in your kid's life. And for the life of me, there is always pushback. I always get pushback from parents. They think it's harder than that, or they want it to be something else, a switch they can flip that makes it better. And I'm like, it's not, it's you. It is you and your involvement in your kid's life. That's it.
Yeah, I have a really good friend who is a principal, and he was just telling me, it's like, he remembers, times when, he was a teacher and you're talking to students, and he is in the inner city in Cleveland, Ohio. And it's like, you ask kids, well, I need you to bring a book in. And the only book, now he's old enough to be my dad. He's actually one of my best friends' dad, but he's like, the books that would come in would be the Bible or a telephone book, because those are literally the only books that are in the house. So so it's very easy to say, oh, well, these kids spend all their time on the screen. They're not reading and writing. And it's like, well, no, they're spending a lot of time on the screen, but they're not reading and writing because they don't have anything to read or write. There's no one there that is working with them. And this is not, I don't want this to come across like I'm blaming, anyone that's low income for doing this. We understand it. Like, sometimes you have no choice but to work two jobs, because if you only work one, you can't afford to live in your home. I get those kind of things. But a big part of this is the screen time thing is just it's almost like I can't even think of the word. That is not the problem. The problem is that the other things that are also happening because you are not coming from an affluent childhood. It's like, one of the things is like, make sure that when you are eating dinner that you don't be on your screen. And it's like, let's make sure that these children actually get to eat dinner. That was one of the things. It's like, I don't know that a lot of people think about this, but there are a lot of children who come home, and, one of the things that schools do now is that they will actually send a boxed lunch or a boxed dinner home with the child, because they know that that's the next time they eat will be the next time they come to school. So they're literally sending food with them home to eat. So it's like, so don't have a screen on while you're eating. Let's we have to look at things. Let's make sure that child actually has the opportunity to eat, and then we can worry about screens being turned on.
And that's just one example. It makes sense. It makes sense to where if you're eating dinner together as a family, you're supposed to be eating dinner together as a family, right? Mm-hmm. So common sense would be, all right, well, if you're watching your tablet or you're on your phone, that's taking away from the interaction at the family time during dinner. That doesn't necessarily have to be one of the hard, fast rules. It's just logical. Like, all right, well, since we sit down here and eat family, let's do it together. But I will say, whether they're low income or not, there are some affluent kids and some affluent households to where either the schedule is so busy with the parents and kids got their own thing, or the kids get older, they get into activities, they get into work, or whatever the case may be. They ain't even eating dinner together at all anyway. So I just want to preface, but people assume that if families are not eating dinner together, then it's automatically the low income, the low educational background families, when as you get older, perfect, speaking personally, I've got kids of age that we have to drag them down just to eat dinner together as a family because they're busy doing other things. We readjust the schedule forward or backward based on who's doing what that day. So I didn't want to give the impression that this article is saying, well, if your kids are not if your kids are on the tablets at dinner time, then the whole family's ruined. I think the article does a good job of saying that here are some things you can do now that just because the kids have a screen in front of their face, then it's not going to rot their brains. The same thing Rob said about gaming. Same thing he said about rapping.
Well, Kayam put a comment in the Kayam made a comment. The screen time is a symptom, not the illness, and it's true. It's like technology on face value is not a problem. I mean, human nature is going to be human nature regardless. Through the ends of time, people will do what they want to do. People will be mean. People will be, nice. People will be kind. People will be whatever they're going to be. These mechanisms just maybe make it easier to do and facilitate an easier time for it, but people are going to be people no matter what. But parents, I think at the end of the day, if you think there's a problem, you got to start with yourself, honestly. And again, it might be hard. It might seem impossible, but you got to start with yourself. If you think your kid is having a problem with screen time and they they just won't put that phone down, I'm like, you got to start with yourself. Yeah, you got to start with yourself. Honestly, you do. Right. You do. It sucks, but you do. And it might seem like there's no alternative, when you're working 2 jobs or doing whatever you might be hustling to do, but you got to find that time and make that time.
So Stephanie, just to put a bow on this, because, I've been told this is what you do. This is like one of your life's missions, talking about this kind of stuff. Can you just give parents that might be listening to this a tip or 2 or 3 about what they should be doing when it comes to their children's screen time?
Well, number one, you should be monitoring it. Number one, I think parents, especially as with older kids, tend to just hand over a device and then that's it. You never have a conversation about it. You never say, okay, I'm giving you this phone, but you're only going to be able to use it for X, Y, and Z, and or this time or that time. You know what I mean? Like no conversation ever really gets had about how the device use will work in the household. So that's the first thing. You got to have the conversation, whatever that looks like for your household. You got to start with that conversation. Then you got to revisit that conversation because as they get older, things might change. Maybe you get an extra hour, whatever. This is what we do if you want to ask for a little bit more time or visit a different website. As it relates to social media, you should be friends with your kids across all platforms. They should not be able to be on a platform without you knowing that they're on that platform and being friends with them on that platform. So that's going to require, a little, maybe pushing some parents out of their comfort zone because everybody's not as tech savvy as we are. But this is what you got to do. You know what I mean? If you got to sit down at night when your kids go to bed and get on your laptop and figure out how to make a Snapchat account, then that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? Because you need to understand where these kids are. You need to understand how to dig into those apps and find those privacy settings, find those parental controls, and know how to enable them if they need a passcode or whatever the case might be. You need to understand how to do that to protect your children. The internet is a really, really bad place. And you really need to be able to protect your kids from different types of content and different types of people that they are going to encounter when they go online. So it's work, but it is the work of raising children in this digital age.
I think that's a good place to move on to the next story. So thank you for that. So